All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in the office and virtually online. I am Dee Kalmehe-Eva with Sterling Seacrest Pritchard. We're a risk management and insurance brokerage firm serving the commercial, professional, and personal needs of clients across a range of industries. We have 300 team members in 6 locations and provide unique expertise in real estate, healthcare, construction, transportation, logistics, manufacturing, technology, and other professional services. We'd like to offer free educational programs to our clients and network each month, and we are definitely excited about our program today, Secrets to Attracting and Keeping Awesome Employees. Our speaker is Wendy Patel. She is the owner of HR Solutions Atlanta. She has more than 15 years of human resources experience and offers tailored solutions for our clients that are flexible and creative. Aim is to give you peace of mind from the knowledge that you have the tools and resources in place to be a great place to work, allowing you to use your spare time to focus on achieving your business goals. Today, she's going to show us how to keep our star employees and our best practices for recruiting employee engagement. Please welcome Wendy Patel.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. Great. All right. There we go. Okay. So there are two types of business owners, two types of companies, those that engage with their employees, that connect on a daily basis with their employees, and those that don't. And the number one reason why you can't attract and retain the best employees is lack of connection. We've got to feel connected to the company. That is number one. That's number one key. So that's what we'll be talking about today. What are the consequences of not connecting? High turnover, lower productivity, lower work, and higher absenteeism. So how do we connect? These are some ways that we can easily connect with our employees on a daily basis. So the first example is a daily huddle, which I'm a big fan of. This is something that you can do as a team or a department. I recommend you do it even standing and set the timer. You'll be hearing me also talk about setting the timer a few times today, because I am a big fan of that. It just signals to people, hey, it's not going to be another long meeting. It's going to drone on and on. Standing also signals, okay, we're not going to be here long, right? But in those daily huddles as a team, you will discuss what the day's priorities are. So everybody's focused, everybody's on the same page. And then as a team, you can assess, okay, what snafu do we foresee, any obstacles that may come up today? And then as a team, you solve that so that you're getting ahead of it and the project can keep running smoothly. You don't have to stop and try to get everybody together and solve the problem in real time. Greetings, even in person and if you're hybrid, still take the time if you're in person to walk around and greet your employees. So if you're, even if you're a bigger company, have your managers do that, right? So to your direct reports, but make sure you're walking around saying hello to them, making that connection, looking them in the eye. How was your weekend? How was your evening? Just making those touch points, right? Undivided attention. This one is so key. We're all so distracted. We live in a distracted world, but when you are engaging with your employee, put your phone down, look them in the eye, and let them know that, hey, what you have to say is important to me. If they come to you and you're right in the middle of something, look them in the eye and say, hey, can I come and find you after I wrap this up? And then follow through. But nothing is worse, and I know we all have had meetings where somebody is looking, who's coming in the door, looking at the TV screen behind us, right? Or looking on their phone. And that just signals, hey, you're not that important to me at this time. Get to know your employees outside of work. So get to know their family members, what their hobbies are, what sports their kids play, and engage with them about that. So on Monday morning, ask Susie how the football game was, if she's training for a marathon, right? How's the marathon training? But engage with them, and that also sends a signal, hey, I value you, I'm connecting with you, I care about you. And then, actively listen. Again, just, that sends a signal, I hear you. So people, we want the employees crave dialogue, right? We want to be heard. So when you're talking with your employee, mirror back to them, say, let me repeat back to you what I think I heard you say. Make sure it's clarified before proceeding. Okay. And so what do we get out of making this investment? We're going to get employees that are motivated, engaged, creative, and committed. That's the quickest way that you can create a loyal employee, somebody that's on board to support your goals of the organization. So we're going to talk about what employees really want. I touched on that a little bit there, but this I think is kind of lost. We all hear, oh, these bigger companies have beanbag chairs in the break room, and they've got, a ping pong table, and that's fun and great, but the novelty of what that wears off very quickly. And then what? So let's get to what employees really want. So there was a Harvard study done on 10 of the most highly effective, highly, high producing, high productive teams. And the three common themes that came out of this were that all of those companies had created a psychologically safe environment. They had ties to the future. So in their interactions, they all knew, hey, we're part of something bigger. I have a future with this company. And they all had purpose for their job. Okay, so what is psychological safety? Psychological safety is where we build trust. And that starts from the top down with the leader, with the business owner, where we get vulnerable. The quickest way to do this is for the business owner, the manager, the leader to say in front of his or her team, hey, that last project did not go as well as I'd hoped. I really messed that up. Admitting that you're not perfect, saying I could have done that better. So that just makes everybody kind of sigh and not be as stressed about if I make a mistake, I'm going to be fired. Right. And then also, people are not going to hide their mistakes. They're going to come out in the open where everybody else can learn from these mistakes and not make them in the future. Belonging cues. So these are things that we can do to make us feel more connected to a company, right? So lots of, like I said, undivided attention, eye contact, um, exchanging niceties. So lots of pleases and thank yous, fist bumps, high fives, celebrating wins together as a team, complimenting each other and not being afraid to ask for help, right? It's okay. That's again something to be vulnerable with and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this project. I don't even know how to get started. Can you help me? And then after action reviews are a great way for the team together to say, okay, let's see what went right for this last project. What could we have done better? And how can we prevent that from happening in the future? Okay, future ties. So this is where we tie everybody's individual job to the bigger picture, to the overall goal of the company. And so we have to teach this. This is gonna require a little bit more time on the front end to explain and teach employees, how does your specific job affect the good of the company? How does it impact the next person after you pass the baton, right? So a good example would be somebody working in inventory. If they're not properly managing the inventory, drops low, they can't feed the production line, can't get to the customer can't do their job, then it just comes full circle. But without teaching that, how do we know? How do they know how their job impacts the rest of the organization and ultimately the bottom line, profit? Um, and also, so this is something that I think we really need to do a better job as with the company is communication and sharing those goals so that anybody off the street should be able to come in and ask any of your employees, what's the company's 6 months goals, 1 month, 1 year goal, and beyond, and they should be able to rattle it off immediately. Otherwise, you're losing an opportunity for your employees to get on board, help you solve the problems, and help you achieve these goals. So definitely provide that roadmap, right? And sit down with them, invest that time, and show them, hey, this is where we're going. This is how you're going to get there. Basically connecting the dots between your individual roles and the company goals. Establishing purpose. How do we do that? Again, getting everybody on the same page. What we're all, what are we all here for? Let's establish purpose. What is the business why? If you don't have core values or a mantra or anything like that, is a great way, a great opportunity to do that with your team. As a team, decide, hey, what do we stand for? What are the problems we're solving? How are we unique? How are we different from our competitors? Come up with those slogans and don't just put it in the handbook once and give it to new hires and then it goes behind, goes under the desk and never is mentioned again. Make sure it is present on a daily basis. So, putting it on the doors in and out of the building, your doorways, putting it on letterhead, maybe even having a symbol that symbolizes to your employees when they see that, oh, now I remember, I'm going to maintain my focus on our goal and not get distracted by something else. A good example would be you guys define your ideal customer and your ideal client, and there's reasons for that. But then let's say this incredible opportunity comes up, but this client doesn't really meet your criteria, isn't aligned with your company values. That's a huge risk, right? So that by being reminded of what you stand for, you can minimize risk as well. Okay. Transparency. I do encourage companies as much as they can to be transparent with the numbers. If you have revenue goals, you've got to share where you are now in order to get to where you want to be. And that really helps employees really tie in their individual contributions as to what's going on in the company and the goals of the company. And that also taking the time to teach people how to read a financial statement, how to read a profit and loss statement, right? I mean, even I'm talking like from the top or from the bottom up, that getting that buy-in and teaching them how to understand, you're tapping into a wealth of information you may not know is already there, and opportunities to help the organization. Yeah.
I'm interested in the whole thought on financial transparency. Um, then there's an old school mentality, which is keep it all in. And if you're the business owner, um, if everybody knows what you're taking home,
Right.
that can create problems. Um, and I guess my question is, it seems to me the more transparency, the better. But what are your thoughts on that? Where, this day and age, where's the happy medium, or what's the appropriate way what's your advice on that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, and one that I get a lot from my clients. Whether or not you are transparent, if you don't show the financials, employees are already making up stories on how much money the owner's making, right? And you could better believe that they think that you're lining your basement with gold bricks. Okay. So, or that, yeah, well, that's true, right? So if by not showing them, I think you're doing a disservice, right? And, exactly. Exactly, right. The inverse is true too. So by teaching them that, you can also, let's say that, they can jump in and help. So if the inverse is true and you're not on track to make as much as you did last year, or maybe even a lot less, that gives the employees opportunity to jump in and say, hey, I want a bonus this year. How can we help you? Otherwise, they don't know what they don't know. I think you're losing opportunity if you don't show that information. And like I said, they will make up their own minds. And the opposite is true too. If you're not doing, if you say, hey, we're not able to have bonuses this year, they're going to think, oh, because as an owner, you took all the money, right? So by teaching them, hey, this is our financials, this is our revenues, let's all get a goal. How can each individual here help us make more money this year? That gives them the purpose, right? It gives them a meaning, a reason to work harder, to jump in and be a team player. Did that help? Yeah, I do. As much as you can. Yeah. down to the P&L.
taking everyone through. We're a small company
Yes.
and I have no problem doing that. But I mean, is that a good thing to go through the minutia of a P&L?
Yes. The more information, the more knowledge there, the more you're opening up to having people help you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know it's scary. It's not something that a lot of companies do, but I'm telling you, I've seen it firsthand. It really helps. And again, as a business owner, let's say that your employees really want a supreme health insurance plan, right? This is another way to say, hey, well, look at the bottom line. If you guys want that, this is where we need to be. Okay, there's a reason for motivation and incentive. So going for the win, teaching our employees how to what it feels like to win. And so that's a great segue into, creating games out of problems. So if the employees want to have this amazing health insurance, let's tap into a revenue goal. Let's make that one of the goals. And I would say no more than 2 or 3 big goals for the year. You don't want to kind of get, it'll just be too much. You've got to focus on 2 or 3 at the time. But create a game out of it. And so you guys can have a big win, a big prize at the end. Some examples I have are, let's say the department that wins gets to choose a mural to be painted in the break room area or the common area. You could have a mobile nail spa and massage day, setting up a ice cream bar, those type of things. You work with your team, you come up with the incentive together, right? Because it's got to be something meaningful to them. But that's a great way to instill what it feels like to win. And then I want to stress, we recognize individuals, but we reward teams. So there's a difference there because we definitely don't want to, be competing against one another. So recognize individuals publicly, public thanks so much for jumping in and helping. You really saved us, but reward teams because we definitely want that team environment. And then instilling pride in work, thing I think that we're not doing a very good job of either, but ways that we can do that if you're in person, maybe buying paint supplies and letting an employee paint an accent wall in their room, in their office. Maybe hiring somebody to hang pictures that they bring in from home, something that personalized their space. And again, making that tie to the company. And another great example of this was in a manufacturing company. They had all the paint supplies and the paint, and they had their employees come in on a Saturday with their families, and they were allowed to paint their machines, their assembly press machines, and it just all of a sudden everybody started keeping their work area clean. They started having all this pride, and got rid of the clutter. I mean, it did an amazing job of just saying, hey, I want to be proud of where I work and the area in which I work in. So public displays of appreciation, again, oops. This you can do in person or if you're hybrid, but some of the examples are, make sure that you're sharing as a team in your meetings. You've got to make time to do that, and it doesn't have to break the bank. Even everybody, you could do a potluck party, you could cater in lunch, whatever it is, but make sure that you acknowledge, take time out and celebrate. And then, give shout outs in Microsoft Teams or whatever software you're using, and make sure everybody knows and is getting credit and it's acknowledged. Cheers for Peers is something where you encourage your employees maybe one day a week on a Friday, and they shout out to a coworker that really helped them, that stayed late to help them, when you were sick, they jumped in and helped. So recognizing people, but that's also just instilling that culture of support. I care about you, and you matter to me. And then handwritten thank you notes. Those go so far in telling people how valued you are. And I can't tell you how many employees I've seen that will display that thank you note for years on their desk, on their bulletin board, because it does take time out of your day to stop and handwrite something and you thought about this person. So that is definitely, cost effective, and it goes a long, long way. And then giving employees a voice, scheduled check-ins with your employees. I mean, I know we're all busy, but again, setting that timer for 15 minutes, that's all you need. Checking in on at least a quarterly basis, if not monthly, saying, hey, what's going right? Tell me what's going on. What are your goals for this quarter? How can I support you better? Do you have all the tools and the supplies that you need? And then I love this power statement is just tell me more. So when you're engaging with employees and they're pouring their heart out to you, or they're trying to tell you something that's going on, look them in the eye and say, tell me more about that. And make sure you get to the root of the problem so you know exactly what needs to be fixed and how you can help. And then I love the stop, start, continue behavior. This is something, again, that does not take long. Quarterly would be ideal, but checking in and saying, hey, so a manager would say to their direct report, what's something I'm doing that I should stop doing? It's not really working for you. Either, I'm saying that something I'm saying or doing that's not working for you, right? So it's catering to their preferences. The start behavior is, what am I doing? What am I not doing that I should be doing that would really support you and help you out? And then what am I doing now that's working really well that I should continue doing, that you like? And then you could do that vice versa, right? So you could do that for your employees as well. And then you become, if the more you do this, if you do it on a monthly basis, you're going to have this real-time feedback culture that is key to everybody being on the same page, correcting that behavior, and everybody is bettering themselves, in real time. So best practices for recruiting. I can't stress enough how much a warm welcome matters. And so when you bring this person, if your first impression is on the phone, making sure that you're representing the company enthusiastically and you're so excited to talk to this employee, because if you're coming across as, uninterested, that's going to show, and that's just going to bring everything down, and they're not going to be excited, right? Making sure that if it's an in-person interview, that everybody in your company knows that Lisa is coming here today to interview for the marketing, and if you see her in the lobby, go and introduce yourself. I mean, how amazing would it be if you're sitting there, you're nervous for an interview, and somebody walks over and says, hi, I'm Wendy Patel. Oh, you must be Lisa. You're here for the marketing interview. This, I wish you the best of luck. And man, that would feel really good, wouldn't it? I mean, that somebody, not just, your hiring manager, but other people in the company know who you are. Again, with the receptionist, right? If there's a receptionist there, that first impression is key. If they don't know who you are, if they're distracted and on the phone and they don't acknowledge you, that's not a good first impression, right? So these are ways that you can really assess and evaluate if the candidate is a good fit for your company. So I always like to communicate in two ways. Maybe the first communication might be me reaching out by email, and that gives me a chance to assess their email etiquette. Are they too casual with me? That's not a good sign. Do they have a lot of misspelling, typos? They couldn't be bothered to slow down and check that? That's not a good sign, right? How do they sound over the phone? Are they just kind of, boring and very, low key, low energy? Is that something that's going to match your culture? Those two things right there, you can weed out a lot of people that are not going to be a good fit right away, that they're just not even interested. Paint a picture of the job for your candidates. Tell them a typical day is like this, starting from the morning and on through the afternoon, what they'll actually be doing, so that they can, get an image of exactly what they're in for. You don't want to hide anything. You want to tell the good, the bad, the ugly. I always start with that too. I'm like, hey, here's an example. I was recruiting for a janitorial company, and we were looking for people to clean at a daycare facility. And I was up front. I was like, hey, this is a daycare facility. If you have a very sensitive nose this is not the place for you because there's going to be a lot of dirty diapers. And, if they were so appreciative, they were like, oh, that doesn't bother me. Or, oh man, I'm so glad you told me that. I am very, I can't do that. So, but they, that because if the worst part is you get somebody in there and then they didn't know, then they quit, and then you're just back to square one. You're heading all of this off by painting that clear picture. Great questions. Don't ask a yes or no question. It's got to be open-ended. Have your candidates tell you about a time when they had a conflict at work. How did they handle it? Because we're all human, and we're going to run into issues where we may not agree with somebody at work. How did they handle it? Were they mature enough? Did they just quit? Ask the reasons why they left their company. You want to know how they talk about, previous employers. Is it all negative? That's not a good sign, right? Um, so just asking those open-ended questions. Interview with peers. So I love this. The first initial interview would be with the hiring manager. And then maybe the hiring manager leaves the room and allows the peers in that department to come in, and they get a second pair of eyes on the candidate, and they might see something that the candidate didn't show the hiring manager. And it also gives you buy-in from the peers, right? Because this is a person they're going to be working with. So if they're voting yes, and then they bring in the person, they're going to be on board to support and make sure this person is successful. And then an interview project. This is a great one too for candidates. This is something that shouldn't usually take more than an hour or two at the most. If it does, I would definitely suggest paying them for it. Again, this is something low cost that you could weed out somebody or identify a really good candidate. But let's say somebody's responsibility is going to be doing a lot of data analysis with Excel. You have them come in and give them the data, and then they have to convert that into an Excel spreadsheet, maybe using pivot tables, whatever it is. But you get to see, number one, how they approach a new project in real time, and then see their work product, see if it's going to be a good fit.
Can I ask another question? Yeah. So back to great questions. One of the things I think is the hardest thing about hiring folks is trying to figure out some people are self-starters, some people have initiative, some people have drive, some people are just filling a chair, some people own their job, some people don't. To find the person that really, really, truly owns their job, takes pride in it, initiative. Katie, you're a good example. I'm not just saying that. It's hard to find. Yeah. And I've always tried to figure out how to what are a couple of really good questions that help you figure that out, figure out if the person you're talking to has those qualities.
Yeah, that's a great question. Some of the questions I love to ask is, tell me about a time when you've gone over and above your job description, your job duties. Tell me about a time when you've helped out an employee and just stop talking and let them talk. Tell me about a time when you had a new project. How did you start that new project? What were your resources? And this was something you'd never done before. It was a new topic for you, a new assignment. How to start that? And just listen and really see how are they stumbling over the words? Are they just kind of talking in the air? Are they talking around it? Or do they have a definitive process? Are they, here's my step one. And that's a great sign, right? Here's my step two. Questions. If I have any, doubt, I want to be sure that I'm on the right track. I get clarity. And then you could just say, tell me about a time when how do you take initiative? And then stop talking. And then, I'm all for just being transparent, asking those hard questions. Why not, right? This is your company, and you've got to make sure this is the right fit. We all know that turnover costs so much money, and it's such a waste of time. Might as well get it right on the front end and invest a little bit more time and have a couple of different interviews. Maybe even take somebody, to lunch or breakfast, see how they interact with a waitress, and how, are they opening doors? Are they rude? Yeah. Does that help? Yes, I do. Yes, yes, absolutely. So I do that a lot for my clients, either on the front end or on the back end. Like I'm the last pair of eyes to decide between a couple of candidates, to get a good read and ask those hard questions. I think that's it. But does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Wendy, quick question. I read recently that there's some legislation kind of being proposed up in DC, circling around non-competes and kind of getting rid of non-competes potentially, which to the business owner, employers, there also, I mean, that would create some concern of people bouncing around in the younger generation, my generation, even younger. I mean, it's common that people are bouncing around a lot. Are you seeing any kind of unique ways, kind of outside the box thinking with different compensation models, deferred compensation or additional benefits outside of just, health benefits, that companies are putting in place, paying a little extra to give another piece of the pie to kind of keep, employees there as another incentive benefit?
That's a great question. Yeah, that I've been talking to attorneys about that legislation as well, and they don't think it's going to pass. Well, hopefully that it won't. But as far as being creative, I haven't seen anything other than what you mentioned there yet of what they're trying to plan for in the future. No, sorry, I haven't. I'll have to think on that and get back to you though. Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much. Oh, Gavin.
Make sure that
I'll repeat the question. The question is on assessments, personality profiles. Right. So the question is what do I feel about doing a personality assessments on the front end versus the back end? Typically, it's when it's done. I love that. I love that. Why not? I mean, that's getting ahead of it. I mean, I think that's a great tool to use. And I think a lot of companies wait till the end just because of the costs. Some of those get really costly, but I love that idea. Yeah, absolutely. That's phenomenal. Keep doing that. That's great. I mean, that really is. I have not heard a companies doing that, and I think that's fantastic. Yeah, and then you put together a team of like-minded individuals, right, that complement each other. You could cater to their learning preferences and their feedback preferences. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Wendy, I got another one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bomb you with all these questions, but this is really helpful. So we're getting just crushed on health insurance costs. We're a small business. It is just killing us. And we've grown, thankfully, as a business. When we started out, wanted to be, just because it's hard to find good people, we wanted to be almost overly generous. We've always paid for our employees plus their families. But that's killing us. And so a couple of questions, so one of the things that just happened, I don't know, 6 months ago, literally someone knocked on our door with a PEO.
Okay.
And have given us a couple of presentations that are pretty compelling. They talk about their buying power on the health insurance side. And the fact of the matter is that when you add back some of the administrative services and things that they offer, that they would say, you need to have anyway, it's sort of a wash from a cash flow standpoint. So number one question is, you think of that kind of arrangement, where, where is it like at a company size where that begins to really truly make economic sense? And then secondly, is also in relation to, we're going to continue to grow, which we want to do. It's almost untenable for us to continue to provide the types of plan we have now, honest to God. But coming off that, retracting that, taking that away is also a difficult thing for people to stomach, right? It's really tough. And so it's a quandary for us, and trying to figure out the right way to go about being long-term smarter about what we provide and spend.
No, that's a question that I get a lot, and that is the number one expense for business owners. As far as the PEO, I think there does come it does work. There's a place and time for it, and as far as how many employees, I would say over 50, but then again, it just depends on the type of business, right? So I can't just say yes, over 50. But I've found that, with, like I said earlier, and with your question, make it known. Say, I think it's the more you can be upfront with your employees. It's like, hey guys, we want to be able to provide this for you, but here's where we're at. Can you guys help us out? Are there some things in the plan that you're not using? What's the number one thing that's being used in the plan? Is there a way to be creative and maybe just, carve out a plan that would work and cost and save costs that way? It's hard. That's a very, very tricky situation. Another idea would be to offer a stipend instead of a healthcare plan. You give a certain amount of money on a monthly basis, and then employees can go and get their own health plan. That's if you're under 50 employees, of course. But there's definitely different thoughts on that, and I'll be glad to talk to you, one-on-one about some options there. Yeah. It is hard though. It is hard. Yeah, you're not alone. Yeah.
Annual meeting every year, and he's always wanted to make sure that as an individual he was able to offer at least your medical with no premium or anything. But and if not families, I can imagine that must be very, very expensive. So it's really good to be able to offer that, but every single year he's very transparent. And then of course, Sterling every year and then do the presentation. But there became a time when the premiums became so high that they did adjust the plan. We've had to adjust plans. And there was a time when in the past 3 years that he changed the plan and we had a higher deductible um that came into play, but he was very transparent about it and people were okay with it. And for the most part, that's one of the things that a lot of our employees are really happy about as an individual, that you can get your medical without having to to pay these monthly premiums. But our deductible went up, so but it was okay. Employees took it well, but it's just that we have a conversation about it every single year. Yeah, about 250. 250.
But
Yes.
we do have to pay, like the health insurance itself is free, but
But
if
we,
you want vision or dental, like all of that stuff is add-ons. They have to pay.
they
But
have to
there's a
pay.
high and a low plan.
Yeah.
So
So
if
they
they
give
need
some
the bare
different options.
basic, then it's much cheaper than like the high level.
And each year, Sterling Pritchard has came in with some different options to be able to. But the good thing is that we have this annual meeting every single year, and insurance is going to be the start of the meeting. And he's super transparent about it. He talks about it, and numbers even go out, and they break it down. And employees, they can respect that. So it's just really communication. I think that makes everybody feel really comfortable about it. I think it's okay to just have a conversation and come up with some different options.
I would say that I'll get you in a second. I would say that the average employer contributes about 80% of the employee-only portion. But I know, and that's still cost prohibitive. I know. So it's tough. It's tough. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, and it kind of piggybacks off that. I know there's probably people from all kind of industries in here, but in the multifamily house industry, we have seen drastic swings in employee benefit packages with our competitors. And I didn't know if anyone else is seeing that. Like, how do you keep up without knowing if you're giving away the farm? And then also as like a tenured employee, sometimes you honestly wonder, are you missing out by seeing these swings and not, jumping ship? I'm just being transparent, because when you hear of like, I mean, sabbaticals, like I never even heard the word until like 2 years ago. And then now I see these 10-year, you reach 10 years, you get 6 weeks free paid vacation, like, and it's kind of hard to figure out, like, is this here to stay? Are people doing this just because there was a great resignation and they wanted to recruit employees? So, like, what are your thoughts on that? How do you land, and how do you even know, like, do you bring up to your owners, like, we really do need to make these changes because we're falling behind? So kind of a loaded question, but
Right.
I just feel like a lot of people are seeing that these days.
Right. Well, I think as far as, keeping up with it, that's exactly how you stay abreast, is listening to your employees. They're out and about, they're interviewing, they're hearing things in the market. But what I would, recommend as a business owner is listening to your employees. I mean, if it's something that a lot of people are asking for, and you look at your numbers, and if you can afford it, why not? If it's something that's not in the budget, is there something else, an alternative, more PTO, more flex time, compressed work week? Look at those kind of things that maybe where you can match, meet in the middle. But I don't think that, employers are expected, and I certainly would not expect employers to just jump at, oh, they're doing this, let's do that. I think that it's very specific to your culture and what's important to your employees. And a lot of employers, they don't know what's important to them, right? So they may think, oh, I know that they want this Mac Daddy insurance plan, but in reality, it really didn't mean as much to them as flex time. And so the company was spending all this money that they really didn't need to, right? So surveying your employees, getting to know exactly what they want, what's important to them. I love the concept of unlimited PTO. I'm always, of the mindset, let's trust our employees to be adults and be responsible and professional and do what they're supposed to do. I know. I get it. I get it. Right. And exactly. So all that to say is it does depend on your industry, on your company, right? But you tighten the screws by the policies. So even though it is unlimited, doesn't mean that you can't get your job done and you can't, do exactly what you were hired to do. The policies that I create, you are, despite of the unlimited PTO policy, you still required to do exactly what your expectations are. And that goes to, spelling out exactly what they need to do. I mean, because if we're paying people to be in a seat from 9 to 5, I think that's doing a disservice rather than paying people for the result that we want. So if they can do it in less time and they're doing a great job, why not? Why not offer it? Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy. It was great. So our next program is going to be a cyber situation room on April 19th with Clear Winds Technologies. We are going to learn from real life cyber attacks that have happened, how things could have went differently if they had the right tools in place. Thanks again for joining us. If you have any feedback or program suggestions for us this year, just email me at kdk@sspins.com. Thank you.